Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by the generosity of the following companies. The Old Mill Press, publishing beautifully crafted books that illuminate our world. To learn more, visit theoldmillpress.com. And by listeners like you.
Hi, this is animator Darley Brewster, and you're listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Aye, mateys, remember this as the day you sailed with the Skull Rock Podcast. Proceed at your own risk and mark well me words, mateys. Dead men tell no tale.
We're back, everybody. Skull Rock Podcast, the show about all things Disney and pop culture. Every week we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, music, as well as what's streaming, what's playing in theaters, and what is happening in this multiverse of entertainment. I'm Aljon, musician and longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and pop culture fan and critic. You can email me, Aljon, ALJON, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, author, and trying to get unboxed. Welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Yes.
If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on the Skull Rock YouTube channel. You can also email me at dave@skullrockpodcast.com. Aljon, I'm back in the seat here,
yes,
and I will be for quite a while.
That's great.
I know. It's unbelievable. Even though I'm surrounded by boxes, and I'm slowly getting certified as a box cutter. I have to tell you, it's starting to settle down a little bit. These last 3 or 4 months have just been absolute insanity.
Yes, I bet. I mean, you have been, you've had to go cross country, not only picking up everything and then moving after being in, the LA portion, area for 30 years, 35 years?
No. I was living in LA for 40 years.
40 years.
Because I went out there to go to school at Cal Arts. That's where I met Nancy, by the way.
Yeah.
And we were living in the house we were in for the last 30 years.
Unbelievable.
So it's just been absolutely crazy, but we're really starting to get settled down and getting rid of a lot of boxes and getting stuff unpacked. And the funny thing, Aljon, and I want our listeners to know this, whenever you move, and I think this is so true, you try to pare down what you're moving, but you invariably, when you're unpacking on the other end, you're looking at stuff and go, why did I bring this? Why didn't we get rid of it? So we've been actually, not only did we do a ton of donations to various charities, Goodwill and the Vietnam Veterans and St. Vincent de Paul Society and everything in Los Angeles to just purge a lot of stuff. We are doing that here. We just already made a run to the thrift store to drop off 10 bags of clothing. And we're like pulling stuff out, go, why did we bring this? It was crazy. So anyway, that's what's been happening. But we are getting settled into a groove here, which I'm real happy about. But I'm glad to be back here with you, Aljon.
Yes.
So that we can continue doing our show and bringing some great interviews to our listeners.
100%. I love talking pop culture with you every single week. So welcome back. Hopefully for a few more months before we pack up again and broadcast remote somewhere. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I know it really will be. And today we're going to be dropping part 5 with Bill Kroyer.
Unbelievable.
We've been getting a lot of feedback, and we're going to go into our listener email in a moment. But just a tremendous amount of feedback on the Bill Kroyer month here at Skull Rock Podcast.
Bill is so prolific. He's worked on so many different projects, and it's great to kind of delve into the mind of this wonderful creator. What a great, I will call him visionary, because he was so integral, especially in this, work of CGI in the realm of CGI. It's absolutely amazing. And live action in CGI as well, Dave. I mean, the stuff he's done is just amazing. So looking forward to this. And don't forget too, I will also drop this. You've talked about it, alluded to it in the interview, but Mr. In Between, Bill's book, we have links in the show notes about it. And if you haven't checked out the book, that is a must have for everybody who's fans of the art and the genre. So
absolutely. And it's going to be one of the books we talk about leading into the holiday season. So if you're looking for gifts, if you're looking for a gift for yourself or to give to somebody else who happens to be in the industry or is a fan of the industry, this is a great book.
Absolutely. Before we get into the news, let's talk about
Skull Rock Podcast answers your email.
Chris Banis. We have a crew member, if you will, on Patreon, which I absolutely appreciate. Chris is amazing. And she writes, "Hey, Aljon, I wanted to send you a recommendation for a film to see called Light of the World. I remember seeing the display for this at Animation Y'all Expo and had wondered about it. And lo and behold, Tom and Tony Bancroft were, along with others, the major creators of this very well done film. As a Christian, I always go out of my way to support faith-based products, and it didn't disappoint. I know I'd lean on Kat when Dave was unavailable, but I wanted to know that if you ever need me, I will help out." Hey, that's awesome. Thanks, Chris.
I think it's great. I think we should have Chris on as not just a guest host, but just join us. You know, maybe we should do that in the coming new year, Aljon.
Yeah.
Is maybe get some different podcasters to pop in and join us as a third person on the show.
I would love that. I think
it would be kind of fun.
Absolutely. I also would love to send a shout out to Tom and Tony Bancroft as well. And Light of the World, a film by Salvation Poem Projects, is actually in theaters. If you wanted to check that out, check out lightoftheworld.com. And we've had Tom and Tony on the show before, not just to talk about Animation Y'all, but of course their awesome work that they did with Disney.
Yeah, both their careers are fantastic careers. And by the way, speaking of Animation Y'all, you and I, Aljon, are going to be at the Animation Y'all Expo in April, the beginning of April of next year in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes.
It's going to be the second year that they're doing the event. It's going to be bigger and better and larger because the first time out of the gate was fantastic. I mean, they were turning people away, which is amazing.
It is.
So we're already going to be there. We're supporting those guys. By the way, I have some notes that I got from a few of our listeners, so I'm going to race through these really quick.
Okay, yes, please.
So this is Dave. I met you on the Match Game show on the Solo podcast. You know Stan Solo's podcast, right?
Yes.
I was the Goofy fan and won the episode.
Oh.
I started listening to your podcast after that, just in time for the 6-part interview with Kevin Lima. It was great.
Yeah.
I've also enjoyed your what you're watching part. We get a lot of feedback from listeners who love what you're watching.
Yes.
What we're watching.
Yeah.
I took your recommendation about Art Detectives, thoroughly enjoyed it. Another series I just started watching that you might enjoy is Death Valley on BritBox. It stars Timothy Spall, who played Peter Pettigrew in the Harry Potter movies.
Yes.
Well, guess what, Paul? We talked about Death Valley. I've actually watched Death Valley. I watched the whole first season. It's a great show. I love it. I love Timothy Spall as well. He's fantastic. He says, "My condolences also on the loss of your mother, and hope the move back east has gone well. We've moved to Florida in 2020 after living in Alabama for 20 years. It was liberating and draining at the same time. Best wishes, Paul Hoke." I think it's how you spell his, how you pronounce his last name.
Very nice.
I always butcher people's last names, so my apologies, Paul, if that's not pronounced properly. But anyway, thank you for your note. I also got another great note. It says, "Congratulations on the fantastic Bill Kroyer month. I'm really enjoying these longer sessions you and Aljon are doing, as you really do dig in deep in certain moments in their careers, and it reminds me a bit of what it's like to work in a studio and basically learn through conversations, be it over a coffee, a line tester, or in the studio at work. In this day and age, the industry has become more insular, maybe because you either work from home at your desk or you're in a studio in a cubicle or over a Cintiq. So it's podcasts like yours that reconnect people, I feel, and inspire discussions. And that's from our friend Paul from Parts Unknown,
I love it.
who lives in Tokyo.
I love it.
But
Hey,
we'll always know him as Paul from Parts Unknown.
Paul, I'm going to be in Tokyo in December. I
Oh
wonder
my
if
God,
we can
you
meet
should
up.
meet up with Paul. He's
I
a
wonder
great
if we
guy.
could meet up. That would be amazing. Wow. You know, that is absolutely true. I feel like not only are we, fostering a great community of listeners and people that are down with what we're doing, but also just sharing that knowledge. And I find that most of the water cooler talk I've had over my career has really helped me learn and grow. And I think getting those little tidbits, and maybe you feel the same way, Dave, because when you're in an office, and Dave, you spent so many years at the desk there at Disney, that people will pop by and say hi. And as much of a distraction as it is at times, I think it fosters that learning and has some really learning moments.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, a lot of great things have happened just in bumping into somebody in the hallway or, just chatting with somebody in the commissary or whatever it is. By the way, I also got another note here from Erica, who's in Alabama, who's a great listener of the Skull Rock podcast. She was writing about Bill Kroyer Part 4. She said, great episode. And then one other comment from, this was for Bill Kroyer. I'm catching up here, folks, because I've been gone for so long. But we got a great note about Bill Kroyer Part 2. And it says, this was in regards to Fern Gully. Here is a film that there now are 1,000 reviews on YouTube, posting the movie in full 20 plus times, even though YouTube has it free with ads. That is currently on 12 different streaming services as we speak. That was played daily 5 times a day on the Disney Channel for years. That exploded on VHS, but was failed by the distributors. Bill is an amazing director whose boards on The Quest were the only ones that worked. Not just being good at digital incorporations, but at story as well. That's from Darlie Brewster, who is a listener of the show, as well as a former guest and a great animator in her own right.
Darlie's amazing, so great.
Yeah. So there you have it.
All right.
You know, we've been getting a lot of mail. I'm trying to catch up on everything, folks. So if you didn't hear your message, we're gonna get to it. I promise. We're gonna do something next. We're gonna do more next week. So that's it for this week.
We're catching up with mailbag. Hey, if you want to send us email once again at the top of the show, drop us those notes, Aljon or Dave at skullrockpodcast.com. And now, when you hear that projector, it's what we've been checking out, what we've been watching this week, or our picks of the week. Dave, what have you been watching?
Well, like I said, things are starting to settle down. I actually went to the movies. I saw Downton Abbey, the grand finale. And I initially, didn't really watch the Downton Abbey series, but I wound up eventually watching it, and and Nancy rewatched it with me. I thought it was an extremely well done series, and I've seen the Downton Abbey movies. So this is the grand finale, supposedly the end, but I never believed that, quite frankly. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and part of the reason was at the very beginning of the movie, 2 of the stars of the film, Hugh Bonneville and what's her name? Oh, good God, I'm unprepared here.
Oh, it's all right.
Michelle Dockery and Hugh Bonneville get you caught up. there's sort of a let's review what happened in the last movie.
Yes.
So you knew what was going on, and it was absolutely fantastic. I really thought that was a terrific thing for them to do at the beginning of this movie, and I thought the movie had a lot of heart to it. Great performances, beautiful settings. The cinematography was spectacular. Everything about this movie I liked. Fandango gives it 96%, Rotten Tomatoes 92%, IMDb gives it 7.7 out of 10. I give it 2 thumbs up. I think it's a fabulous movie. And period piece. It takes place in 1930 now. But I will tell you, I think they left it open for another movie. Maybe it's not a Downton Abbey necessarily, film, but a continuation, if you will, of the story. And I'm sure they're gonna make it a Downton Abbey, spin-off or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I would highly recommend it. I think it's worth seeing on a big screen just because the production design and the sets are absolutely spectacular, really beautiful. You get that sense of, class. And by the way, the synopsis is: in the summer of 1930, the Crowleys grapple with the threat of social disgrace when Mary finds herself at the center of a public scandal and the family faces financial trouble. So all-star cast, and they do a very nice in memory of Dame Maggie. Oh, God. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Maggie Smith. Yeah, Dame Maggie Smith.
Yes.
Who passed away after the last movie. They do a nice in memory of at the end of the film. So I highly recommend that. On the smaller screen, have you heard of The Paper?
Yes.
Following up on the story from The Office, the documentary crew that immortalized Dunder Mifflin's Scranton branch discovers a disappearing Midwestern newspaper and the publisher trying to revive it with volunteer reporters. The mockumentary follows the daily lives and struggles of dreamers in love with journalism and their less than competent coworkers trying to deliver accurate news without the resources or training to do a great job.
Amazing.
It's 10 episodes. Oscar Nunez, who is in The Office,
yes.
is as an accountant in The Office, is now an accountant at this paper.
It's not typecast or anything.
Yeah, no, but I think it's really terrific. So he plays Oscar Martinez. It's absolutely a great cast. I found, and it's from the creators of The Office,
yes.
Greg Daniels, and I have to say, a lot of fun. It's really pretty hilarious. The great 10 episodes. Rotten Tomato gives it 85%. IMDb gives it 7.1 out of 10. I think it's worth watching if you have Peacock. It's pretty funny. And then finally, over on BritBox, they sort of revived a series that called it was called the Linley Mysteries. And that was on British television back in the early 2000s. And so they've rebooted it with a new cast. It's just called Linley. It's a 4-part series, follows detective duo as they solve crimes while navigating the issues of class and gender in contemporary Britain. The first episode is titled A Place of Hiding. Leo Sutter plays the aristocratic D.I. Tommy Linley, and Sophia Barkley is his working class partner, D.S. Barbara Havers. I really enjoyed this. I watched a couple of episodes. They're 90-minute episodes. I thought it was terrific. Worth checking out on Prime and BritBox.
Very nice.
That's what
good.
I've been watching, Aljon. What have you been watching?
Well, Dave, it is that time of year. My son is screaming, which means that he knows that horror is right around the corner. And The Conjuring Last Rites is in theaters right now. For those longtime listeners of our show know I'm a huge horror fan. And when paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on their most disturbing case to date, Jack and Janet Smurl and their family move into a brand new home they've dreamed of, which turned into a nightmare as their home begins to show signs of demonic infestation. I mean, it's paint by numbers in terms of, the series. I think if you know The Conjuring, you know that they're getting older. The series is been around for a long time, but what is awesome are the actors. Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren, Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren. I love these two together. They have great chemistry as the Warrens, which are based on a real life paranormal, investigation unit. One of the very first, what was that house there over there in the horror house. My son is distracting me, so I had everything that I was going to say remembered, and I totally forgot.
The Amityville Horror?
Amityville Horror, yes.
That was down the road from where I grew up.
I was going to say down the road. Yes, down the road. Yes, down the road. But anyway, great cast, and it starts out with them sharing. Now this is, they started back in the late 60s. Now it's the 80s. They've transitioned. They have music drops to kind of remind you that it's like 1986, and the Warrens are hosting a symposium. And when they used to teach and have these classes that they would teach about paranormal activities and of the such, you could see that their all their talks have garnered tons of people checking them out. But now in 1986, this is post Ghostbusters era, they only have a handful of people coming out to see them. So you get to see the progression, and it's like, who you gonna call? Literally, the people are like quoting Ghostbusters, and it's like they're laughing as they're kind of leaving, and everything seems to be passe, but they're still doing it. And the character, Patrick Wilson's character of Ed Warren's kind of retiring because he's had issues with his heart from all the different things they've investigated. So it's really great. I think there's still some really great jump scares in there. So if you're a fan of the franchise, wonderful. But I don't believe you have to see all the films in the franchise, including Annabelle and The Nun and all these other films that kind of spawned from this Conjuring universe. You don't have to see all of them to enjoy the scares of Conjuring the Last Rites. 7 out of 10 for me, and I think a lot of people kind of agree with that in terms of the ratings on IMDb. So check it while it's in theaters. My wife and I absolutely liked it, but more so because it is a love letter to the fans, as this is supposedly their last film. So I hope you enjoyed that. In the meantime, please feel free to let us know what you'd like for us to review in those emails, and we'll check them out in a future episode.
Skull Rock Podcast. This week in Disney and pop culture.
All right, Dave, your top box office charts. Number 1 in terms of box office, Demon Slayer by Sony Crunchyroll. Dave, can you believe it? Estimated weekend gross $70 million, Dave.
Wow. And that's an animated film, right?
Yeah, holy smokes, man.
Yeah.
It's opened in like over 3,300 locations. Conjuring the Last Rites also did pretty well. 26 million over the weekend, and estimated gross 131 million. I think they're making their money back, Dave. I don't know about you.
I think they are.
Yeah, Downton Abbey also in there for the grand finale. The Long Walk, Toy Story 30th Anniversary, and Weapons are all in there. Hamilton. This is what's going on in terms of the box office and what's going on each weekend. Yes, Hamilton is now in theaters. We mentioned that a few weeks ago. Freakier Friday at number 8, and Spinal Tap 2, Dave. I had some friends see Spinal Tap. I haven't seen it yet, but The End Continues is in number 9, and the 60th anniversary of The Sound of Music is in there too. Wow. At the top 10.
Very nice.
It edges out the Fantastic Four, which I think is rounding out its initial run in theaters. So
yeah.
Good stuff there. But can you believe it? They're putting movies back in the theater. Toy Story 30th anniversary making over $3.5 million at the weekend box office. Dave, is that a surprise for you that they're doing that?
Which Toy Story?
Toy Story 30th anniversary.
No, not at all. In fact, I think that there's going to be more and more of these types of anniversary re-releases to the theaters, because these films were made for the big screen, and these are films like Sound of Music or Toy Story that you should see on a big screen.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Now let's see here. We have a bunch of stuff here. I will say that upcoming releases. Him, September 19th. So as we talk about this, Him is in theaters. Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey's coming out. Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. Strangers Chapter 2, looking forward to seeing that. Tron Ares coming out later on this month, along with Smashing Machine starring The Rock. There's a lot of great movies coming out this month, Dave.
Yeah, Smashing Machine is getting a lot of great buzz about it.
100%.
And I actually want to go see that, because I think Dwayne Rock is somebody who's underrated as an actor, and I think he's going to show everybody his range and his acting chops in this movie.
I think this is going to be breakout for him. As you said, I think, it made the film festivals and standing ovations at those film festivals as well. I think this is the breakout role for Rock, and he's going to be treated as a dramatic actor, much like Jim Carrey was or Adam Sandler was when they started attacking some of these kind of more dramatic roles, if you will. Yeah. So that'll be nice. So the Emmys came and went 2025. And I don't know if you caught the Emmys, Dave, but Netflix Adolescence won big at the 77th annual ceremony with 6 awards, including Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Limited Series or Movie for 15-year-old star Owen Cooper, an Outstanding Limited Anthology Series. HBO's The Pitt also cleaned up in the drama categories for Outstanding Drama and Outstanding Lead Drama for ER alum Noah Wyle.
Yeah, look, that's a great show. If people haven't seen it, The Pitt is really a fantastic medical drama.
Looks good. Apple TV Severance, which you've talked about, led the stable of nominees with a whopping 27 noms, which is really good. And then on the comedy side, Seth Rogen's The Studio dominated the night after racking up 23 noms and winning awards for Outstanding Comedy Series, Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series for Rogen. And along with its creative Emmy wins, Apple TV Plus received a record receiving 13 wins. How about that, Dave?
Yeah, no, I think it was fantastic. I can't watch some of those award shows anymore. I just like to go over the list the next day.
That's exactly what I do. It's mind numbing. It's like the MTV Awards. It's like I just live for the performances. Okay.
Yeah.
Batman adjacent HBO show The Penguin won an award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Limited Series or Movie for Christian Melody. So there you go. And White Lotus also enjoy what was it? They must not have enjoyed its stay at the White Lotus this season, as the Thailand third season walked away empty-handed on Sunday. You've seen the White Lotus, have you not?
Yeah, I watched the first 2 seasons of it. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. Yeah, it's too bad when some of these things happen, but I thought I'd at least give you a little bit of a rundown for the Emmys this week. How about this, Dave? So there's a lot of stuff happening in terms of entertainment, and I will say that Jimmy Kimmel has been making the rounds, of course, as Jimmy Kimmel's been suspended by Disney and ABC. And while we're not going to go into the political ramifications of all this, I will say that coming out of all this, Michael Eisner weighs in with this. It also made the waves because of course, being the ex-Disney CEO. He says, where has all the leadership gone? The former Disney leader called the suspension of the late night program yet another example of out of control intimidation. I don't necessarily think that's the case, Dave. You and I have a little bit more of a deeper understanding of what may be at play here.
Well, I don't think this has anything to do with free speech. I think they're just using that as an excuse to get rid of a show that was maybe breaking even. In fact, I'm just going to read you something here that says several estimations suggest that Jimmy Kimmel Live is likely not generating a large profit and possibly operating at a slight loss or break even after all costs, right? So I think this has a lot more to do with a multi-billion-dollar merger between Nexstar, which I think has 30 independent ABC television stations. They want to merge with another independent television station company. I think it's called Tegrin.
Yep.
And in order to do that, they have to try and loosen the rules with the FCC. And so by yanking Jimmy Kimmel off the air, and by the way, folks, it was Nexstar who preempted the Jimmy Kimmel show on all of their independent stations, claiming that they thought his comments were offensive. And by the way, I saw his comments. I didn't think they were terrible. I think they were tasteless, happening so soon after Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Right.
So, but this is free. We pride ourselves in this country on free speech. People can say what they want, but when you say something you want to say, you have to understand there could be ramifications. And in Jimmy Kimmel's case, it gave Nexstar an opportunity, which they took, to say we're going to preempt him off of these stations. And then Sinclair Television, another independent television station operator, said we're going to yank him off the air, and that spooked Disney, so they essentially suspended the Jimmy Kimmel show. Right.
Yeah.
And what's going to wind up happening is that pleases the current administration. It pleases the current FCC chairman, and it'll hopefully grease the skids for Nexstar and Tegrin to merge, which is what they want to do. So this is bigger than just a free speech issue. That's all I'm going to say.
It's bigger than what, Michael Eisner is talking about in terms of Bob Iger's leadership of Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
And Michael should know that. Michael should know that.
Yeah, I also think it's kind of crappy that Michael would make those kinds of comments against Bob at the company. But that aside, this is what happened with Stephen Colbert over at CBS. The reason why the Stephen Colbert show was canceled was because Skydance was in the process of buying Paramount CBS, and that really allowed them to grease the skids to make that merger go through. That was part of the placating the current administration by canceling the Stephen Colbert show. But I will also say Sherry Redstone, who used to own Paramount CBS, she's quoted in an article I read as saying late night television is not financially viable.
Oh,
right. So I think there's opportunities being presented, and some of these companies are grabbing those opportunities to get out from underneath money losing situations like late night television.
100%. What is making money, Dave, is podcasts, because it's a very cost-effective way for entertainers to get out there without huge staffs, without all of that, writers' rooms of tens of 20s of people in there, that are sucking up all kinds of resources. Now, I, for one, appreciate the fact that people are gainfully employed, whether it's the cameramen and the lights and craft services and all the people that support it. But how is it when you are a shareholder, an investor, and trying to get return on your investment, and these shows continually lose millions and millions of dollars? When's enough? It is enough, and the people are voting with their wallet. They're not watching the shows anymore, but they are watching podcasts.
I mean, they're not getting the ratings they once did. So look, the landscape of entertainment is shifting. The sands are shifting quickly, and This is the fallout. So what is it that Stephen Colbert will do? Jimmy Kimmel do? They'll go on and do their own show on a YouTube channel or whatever it is with a smaller staff of people, and that's part of the changes that are happening in the industry. And by the way, Aljon, you said that podcasters are really making the money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, hold on, because my roles is being detailed. Could you get that spot off of there over there? No.
Well, not this podcast, but we're still working on that. We're still working on it. Can you imagine us like rolling in the dough? My goodness, Dave would not have to touch another pencil for the rest of his life if that's the case.
There you go.
How about that? Well, I tell you, this is going to be an interesting story to kind of just keep an eye on in this ever changing world of entertainment.
But the point here though is, folks, nothing is as it seems in the entertainment industry anymore, and some of these things that are happening for other reasons. And in this particular case, the Jimmy Kimmel Show, it all has to do with the multi-billion-dollar merger that's going on, just the way the Stephen Colbert's cancellation was all part of a multi-billion-dollar merger.
Exactly.
So there you have it. All right, we've talked enough about it. Let's move on.
Ozzy Osbourne accepts he's going to die in the emotional trailer, I Had a Great Life. Dave, have you seen this trailer?
No, I haven't.
Trailer for Ozzy, No Escape from Now. And this is on Paramount Plus. And of course, Ozzy passed away July 22nd at the age of 76. And this documentary, directed by BAFTA winner Tiana Alexander, explores Ozzy's multiple health struggles and his return to the stage for his final show on July 5th in his home city of Birmingham. That is in England, of course. So I've seen the trailer. It's super emotional. I can't wait to see it.
I got to watch that.
Ozzy says, quote, "The thing about getting old, is I used to take pills for fun." Ozzy says in the trailers, "Now I take them to stay alive." Sharon Osbourne says in a film scene before the Rockers' final concert, quote, "One regret is that he never really said goodbye to his fans," quote. So that'll be a really interesting thing to watch on Paramount Plus. So please check that out. I'm trying to see what the date of the launch of this show is, but I think it's already streaming if I'm not mistaken. So, okay, here it is. It premieres October 7th on Paramount Plus. There it is. The way the New York Post writes this article, it's like, yeah, you should have led with that. So speaking of influence, TikTokers, YouTubers, what we do on podcasts is a way of entertaining the masses. And unfortunately, a Disney influencer's children were killed and husband in ICU after fatal car crash. This comes to us another from the New York Post. Disney influencer was forced to live out her nightmare when a fatal car crash in Nebraska took the lives of two children and left her husband in the ICU. Keely Whitcomb, the travel agent who shared Disney content on social media accounts, says Tuesday, "To my friends that follow me, yesterday was the worst day of my life. There has been an accident that has taken my two children and my husband put in ICU. Consider me out of the Disney office." And it's super sad, Dave, but apparently there was an accident that involved an agricultural truck. They said it's a forage wagon. Yes. So two kids had passed away. Very sad indeed. And, we talk a lot about the pop culture and these influencers on the show. And it's just super sad because I know tons of people followed her.
Our condolences go out to her.
100%. Speaking of condolences, we do have our obituary roll call for this week. I know that was a horrible segue. But I will say this, Robert Redford, the golden boy of Hollywood, passes away at 89. Dave, this didn't really come to any surprise to me, but Butch Cassidy and All the President's Men actor, Oscar-winning director, Sundance founder will always be about breaking the rules. That was a quote from himself, Robert Redford. Dave, what a prolific actor. Tremendous.
Without question. And, he had a great life. I mean, 89, that's pretty fantastic, considering his body of work and what he did for aspiring filmmakers with the Sundance Festival and all of that. I mean, it's, look, uh, we don't have to go over his entire filmography. People know Robert Redford, who's one of the great actors of the 20th century.
Absolutely. I was introduced to Robert Redford because one of my mom's favorite movies was The Way We Were, with Barbara Streisand back in 1973. Wow. And a lot of our newer listeners, a little younger, will remember his roles in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as the head of Hydra with the Captain America films. So, man, he will be missed indeed. Sonny Curtis of the Crickets, the frontman behind Mary Tyler Moore Show, dies at the age of 88. In addition to Love Is All Around, the Texan wrote I Fought the Law, Walk Right Back, and More Than I Can Say, hits for the Clash, Everly Brothers, and Leo Sayer. Just tons of music from this guy.
Yeah, and a lot of people might not initially realize it when you say the Crickets. It's Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
Oh, yes.
He was one of the founding members of Buddy Holly and the Crickets. He was a friend of Buddy Holly's.
Absolutely. He wrote the rebellious I Fought the Law, and the law won. 1958. And of course, he was big in the whole kind of the day the music died, with Richie Valens and Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and all that, But he survived. He wasn't on that plane crash that took the lives of all those people. But what an amazing songwriter and performer. Brad Everett Young, Grey's Anatomy actor and celebrity photographer, dead at the age of 46 after a wrong way car crash. Oh,
this is awful.
This is horrible.
This happened on the Ventura Freeway in Los Angeles. He was heading home, and somebody got onto the freeway driving the wrong way, and it was a head-on crash. Naturally, he gets killed, and the drunk driver survives. Just awful.
It's just so tragic.
Yeah.
And so once again, I know him from Grey's Anatomy because my wife and I watch Grey's Anatomy a lot. So that's so sad indeed.
It really
tragic.
is.
Patricia Crowley, star of TV's Please Don't Eat the Daisies, dies at the age of 91. She appeared in dozens of shows and was such films as Forever Female, There's Always Tomorrow, and Key Witness. She's one of those 60s actresses, I think, that some of our listeners might know from some of those early shows. But, man, what a tremendous life. Once again, she was in a lot of TV.
She really was.
Yeah.
Very familiar face.
Absolutely. And then in the music realm, Grammy-winning songwriter Brett James dead after a plane crash. Jason Aldean and country stars mourn and react. Once again, so young and so tragic. James, 57, with his partner Melody Wilson and her daughter. When the aircraft went down near North Carolina's Latta Elementary School, the Federal Administration of Aviation said that there were no survivors from the crash. How incredibly sad.
Just awful.
I mean,
it's shocking when these things happen.
It is, once again. And of course, he's written so many songs for Rascal Flatts and Jason Aldean and Kenny Chesney, just a prolific country music songwriter, and he will be missed. So tragic indeed.
Yeah.
Well, gang, let's sit back, have a seat, and relax, because we are now part of number 5. This is interview 5 with a prolific filmmaker, teacher, director, animator, Bill Kroyer. It's part 5 of our series right here on Skull Rock Podcast.
Let's do it.
Hey, let's chat.
Let's chat.
So let's chat now.
Let's chat afterwards. And he said, let's chat again.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Well, Aljon, we are back again for week 5 with Bill Kroyer. Bill, welcome back to the Skull Rock Podcast.
I am happy to be here for the 5th time. It's like
it's so amazing. But you've had such a really prolific career, and at the end of last week, we kind of left off with you sort of talking a little bit about the ageism that's been going on in the industry for a while. Or maybe it's always been there. I don't know. But segueing into teaching. So I thought that'd be a perfect place for us to pick up this week and just have you talk a little bit about what happened at the end of your career and how you transitioned into teaching.
Well, it was a transition out of actively working in the career, but it was by far and away not the end of my involvement with the animation world, because only a few months after I accepted the position at Chapman to start an animation program, I was elected governor of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences of the animation branch. That started a 9-year, three-term stint as the governor right in the middle of this transition of dealing with the digital age. I became the longest serving member of the Science and Technology Council. I was a co-chair of the Science and Technology Council. I was actually elected the vice president of education of the Academy. So I had this strange decade where, on the one hand, I'm dealing with the newbies, the novices, the kids that are just getting in the industry, and on the other hand, I'm dealing with the ultimate successful, honored professionals, the highest people in the industry, and so that was kind of an unusual dichotomy of a career, and it was quite fascinating. I mean, on the one hand, I had the chance to introduce my kids to all this amazing stuff at the academy, taking them to all the shorts programs, the features programs, and all the events, and getting to meet all these great filmmakers. But the flip side, I had a chance to also use my educational experience to kind of inform a little bit of what was going on, I think at the academy. So it was an interesting time for me, it was a really interesting time.
Yeah, I would say that you'd be the perfect person to be in the academy because you were somebody who really came up through the animation ranks with the transition from hand drawn to digital animation technology and all of that was happening.
But well, it was. I mean, I had joined when I in '89 after I was nominated for an Oscar for Technological Threat. So I'd been in the academy, for 20 years. And look, the animation business, I grew up with it and in it. And so at the time, remember, this is before the big explosion of membership at the academy. The academy was still relatively small. Our branch was relatively small. I knew everybody and everybody knew me. So it was only a matter of waiting for one of those three entrenched governors that we always reelected automatically. We reelected John June Foray, and so when one of them finally stepped down, I ran and I was elected and got into that spot. And it was interesting because, as you said, it was my reputation as being a kind of a technology pioneer that was really uh, played a big part in what I did at the academy. For one thing, that was when we lobbied for the best to have an Oscar for an animated feature. Because
Correct. Yeah.
animated features every year were being ignored. Remember the Academy is 95% live action filmmakers. There's
Right.
only 5% of the Academy membership have anything to do with animation. We were never going to get a best picture, an animated best picture. And yet we were in this situation where at this time with Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and all these movies. Animated films were the highest grossing, best reviewed, most popular films at the box office, and they were being completely ignored by the Academy. So we decided,
And yeah, and Beauty and the Beast was nominated for Best Picture.
yeah, that was Jeffrey
Uh,
Katzenberg's coup. I mean, he just basically bullied the Academy into giving them, even though I'm not sure, but Beauty and the Beast was really the best one of that string. But anyway, it's a good movie, and but anyway, it came down to the fact that we had to uh, make this rule for the best animated feature film. And an interesting sidelight of that was defining in the rules exactly what is animation. And of course, I was on that committee. I was one of the leaders of the subcommittee to talk about literally defining what is animation in the digital age. For a century, there was no question what animation was. It was drawings.
yeah.
All of a sudden now you've got this imagery on the screen that is different. And one of the most controversial things I brought up right away was that I don't think we can have how the film looks be a criteria because I could already predict that you were going to get CG imagery that was going to be indistinguishable from live action photography. And, very soon that would come to pass with things like, Planet of the Apes and everything, where you couldn't tell if this.
And even John Favreau's version of The Lion King.
That's a great example, by the way. Well,
Yeah.
Jungle Book's even better. But so anyway, we made the rule related to animators. It was all about animation acting, and the rule defined the fact that the majority of the main cast had to be created through animation techniques, and that's the rule we settled on. By the way, I may end this interview by telling you how far we've come with that because that whole controversy has never gone away with motion capture and everything.
Sure.
So I was, so there I was in the committee. I literally wrote the rule what animation was in the digital age. Sure enough, the next year, what happens? Along comes Beowulf, right? From Bob Zemeckis. And
Yeah.
so Bob Zemeckis puts that up as an animated film, and we're all going, well, it's definitely not a live action film, but it's mocap. And our rule says that you have to animate the characters. You have to have animators animating the characters. You can't just copy motion capture. So that became a really, I don't know if you remember that. That was quite a big controversy. And the Academy decided to send somebody over to Sony to look at the source files, and guess who that was? That was me. I had to go to Sony. I sat with a bunch of the directing animators and I looked at their source files, the actual files they brought in, mocap data, and what they had to do to it to make it into the film. And in a kind of a famous discovery, I found out that that film had as many animator hours on it as Surf's Up. It literally
Sure.
took, it had A-list animators. They weren't
Yeah.
just technicians in India. They were A-list American animators sitting at their workstations, working with that data, going over this stuff. So at the end of the day, we said, well, animators are making this, so it's, we're going to have to sanction it as an animated film. But that,
Yeah, and back then the motion capture wasn't really as advanced as it is today. So what they were capturing really was almost like using reference live action for animators. In other words, an animator really had to go over the motion capture to make it work properly.
when they made the push for Andy Serkis to be nominated for Gollum,
Yeah,
you know, they kept extremely tight wraps on the source material, on the source capture material. And I got a chance to see that. And it was so obvious that the animators had to supply basically 100% of the facial motion,
yeah,
that wasn't capturing any of it.
yeah,
So, and then along came, these other movies, well, Avatar was another big controversy with, well, actually, Avatar, the interesting thing with Avatar was that James Cameron wouldn't submit it as an animated film. He didn't want it to be viewed as an animated film. He wanted it to be viewed as a film. And
right.
so that never entered the controversy. But, today it's continues to be, I'm going to move out of the sun here. It continues to be, we've just recently modified the rule now because technology is throwing so many new tools at the artist that to try to draw a line, to try to draw the Rubicon where you can't cross over that line is getting harder and harder and harder.
Yeah,
I actually think the day that the computer interpolated in-betweens, all bets were off, because how could you say that's frame by frame animation? I mean, an animator may set keys, but they may set three keys for 60 frames, and the computer does 57 of the frames,
yeah.
whoever touching them. So philosophically and realistically, this invasion of technology into the world of animation has become a very hot topic. To this day, people are clinging to you know, a purist's view that it has to have an animator, but in a lot of ways, all the skills you needed to operate that desk behind me are now completely unnecessary.
Right.
You can have people now who can't even use their arms. They can literally talk to the computer and make an animated film.
Sure.
And if they have a vision and they have an ability to have an imagination and they can imagine something and they can get that machine to do that work, where do you draw the line? And that's how far we've come, you
Yeah,
know?
and of course you're referencing AI technology and where does AI go from here? And you'll get to a point where somebody who can cleverly write a prompt can get what they want. But and also the what's going on in motion pictures today. You look at any of these superhero movies, whether they're Marvel or DC or whatever. Um, there's so much CG animation going into those that it's indistinguishable as to what's the actor and what isn't the actor.
Well,
when
I
it's
use
done
the
well.
I would use the example you have a cartoony duck walking through a cartoony forest. You know, there isn't a single person in the Academy who's going to look at that and go, "That's a live action movie." They say, "Well, no, it's not. It's a cartoony duck walking through a cartoony forest." How the duck was made to walk, you can no longer tell. You
Right.
know, you can do exactly precisely the same walk with old school keyframing. You can use motion capture. You can use motion analysis, right, where you just do it without any markers, and the AI analyzes what it sees and applies it to the rig. There's all these different ways to do it, and it got to the point where, well, if you can't tell how it's done, why should you pick it how it's done? You know, if the artist has chosen a certain technology and it produces the result the artist wants, you
Yeah.
know, how do you draw that line? And that became the big question and problem. I'm not sure that will, I don't know. I think maybe that's at rest now. Maybe we've just gone past that because you can't fight it. You know, you're going to have,
Yeah.
I've never thought any, as the guy who perhaps was known as the guy who animated the very first hierarchical human figure in computer animation at Digital Productions and basically encountered every single stage of computer improvement for the last 30 years. You know, I've never looked at any technological tool as an evil thing. I've never,
Right.
nothing's inherently evil about technology. You know, it's simply how you use it. And so now,
And no matter what, there'll be bad actors. There's going to be bad actors who are going to do things that they shouldn't be doing with the technology, but that's just inherent in anything out there.
yep, you're totally right about that. Maybe we can pop back for one moment and see how my educational experience mirrored this exact.
Yeah, so you were sort of when I said you had this great professional career, you still have a career going. I mean, we all have careers, but the bottom line is your career transitioned from doing theatrical commercial projects into education. And during that period, you were also involved in the Motion Picture Academy. So, like you said, you were sort of at both ends of the spectrum.
But
And
I picked up freelance during that period too. You know, if one summer, Doug Leffler, who was the head story guy at Third Floor, had to go off and do a movie with. I think he was doing Ready Player One with Spielberg, and he said to me, "Would you come in and fill in for me for the summer and board these movies that are going on?" And I did that. I had a lot of fun doing it. You know, I'd occasionally pick up things here and there during that time, so I wasn't completely out of it. But I did devote myself pretty thoroughly to that school because. I think I mentioned last in the last interview how I came about to do that. You know, Bob Bassett invited me down. Bob Bassett invited me down to Orange. I went to Chapman. I met with him at the Dodge College of Film. Uh, I had lectured at almost every film school in LA at that time, and I felt they were all like schools, but I felt that Dodge was more like a film studio. The vibe was like a working studio, and I liked that. And then Bob Bassett giving me the opportunity to create my own department, hire my own faculty, and create my own curriculum. Pretty hard to pass that up. I found that to be an interesting challenge. So that's what I did. And I'll tell you, um, to touch all the way back to the beginnings, I had a belief that hand-drawn animation should be experienced by everybody who wanted to be an animator. So the one thing I did was I made them buy animation drawing discs and tabletop animation desks. And everybody had to take a semester of hand-drawn animation on paper, with downshooters shooting pencil tests.
did
Because
you
I had
did
this,
you did you get pushback from that?
I got pushback from, I also made everybody in the program, including the visual effects majors, take a year of life drawing. And the VFX guys were really said, "What are you doing? We're never going to pick up a pencil in our careers." I said, "Just take it, just see how you feel about it." Within like a month or two, they were all telling me, we're learning how to see. We're understanding light and contour and shadow and surfaces and negative space and all these things that you have to learn by drawing. And the animators were kind of saying the same things. When we're animating on paper, we have no aid from the computer whatsoever. We have to analyze everything about arcs and seasonings and, and creating staging and, character posing. So the initial reaction from everybody, the resistance evaporated pretty quickly among the students. And I really believe that those very fundamental things were an important base. And I know a lot of schools had been dropping them at that time, but I felt we should do it. So anyway, that's kind of how I started. My basic philosophy was to expose every single student to the entire range of filmmaking for the first 2 years. They took the history courses, what was going on. They took, the drawing and basic effects and everything. And then the last 2 years, they could specialize. They could decide which direction they wanted to go. I thought that was a good structure. And they're still doing that at Chapman now. But when I started, of course, in, it would be 2010, Pixar was the king, you know. CG animation was the king. Everybody thought my making people draw was really antiquated and over because everybody really wanted to go into CG and do CG animation. And they and so we did that. And it's interesting, over the course of the decade, we watched that start to shift because in the middle of the decade there on 2015, when Netflix came along and TV exploded, everybody wanted the hand-drawn look, right? That's when all these series were doing it, mostly hand-drawn stuff. It's still computer aided, but then all of a sudden everybody wanted to go back to drawing it, which was really fun and very good. And interesting now, the film show of the school, I just watched it the other night, about a third of the films were hand-drawn, were 2D, which I thought, 7 years ago, everything was CG. Hardly anybody did a 2D film. So I thought that was an interesting arc going on in education.
Well, I think there's a there was a shift happening over the last 10 or 15 years where you had a young generation that was discovering this classic animation, whether it be Warner Brothers or the early Disney shorts or Hanna-Barbera, because of all the streaming channels, all of the cable channels that were coming along, and putting a lot of that material on. I can tell you my youngest daughter was really into watching early Warner Brothers cartoons, and discovered it as it being new to her, So I think that has a lot to do with the shift that was happening, don't you?
I have to say that in the beginning, what I wasn't prepared for and what I had absolutely no experience with was gaming.
Yeah.
The fact that so many of these kids, so many of them played games a lot, and games are a CG world, right?
Yeah.
But that really tilted them very, very heavily toward CG, everything, CG modeling, CG building, CG animation. I mean, to a degree that I really had no experience with. I mean, I thought more like you're thinking of, let's watch old cartoons, let's watch it. They really had not a lot of interest at that time, because I had a lot of kids that wanted to be gaming majors and they wanted to go in. And, as a matter of fact, some of my best students and who have gone on to be my most successful students have done, though, in the gaming industry,
Right.
in
Right.
the traditional animation industry. And that was something that I, wasn't prepared for. I had the idea that the fundamental principles would still apply. Good design, good animation, connecting with character were still important. But I did know from my experience, because I had worked in games a little bit, that gaming is all about gameplay. You can have almost any kind of element at all. If you grab the gamer with exciting gameplay, you've got a success. Um, and so I tried to at least instill that, you know, I was always looking for them to have decent gameplay, and I was always, I have to say, I was really kind of depressed by how mediocre most gameplay is. I mean, 90% of it is like shoot 'em up. It's like
Yeah.
what do they call it? First person shooter games. I
Yeah.
mean, and they, despite the flimsy backstories and the flimsy environment, it all comes down to the same thing, shooting things. And, I thought that was so boring. Then occasionally you'd get a puzzle game or something. And then with a puzzle game, I thought, well, here's something that at least you have something that's a little more relatable to story and mystery and everything. And they'd be really mediocre. And it was really kind of depressing for me to see these really mediocre ideas going through as senior thesis projects with the games. So I don't know. I think I noticed this year, in this year's, that's completely gone now. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because the gaming industry is also kind of bottoming out and, or losing a lot of jobs. Maybe people are not seeing the opportunities there anymore. But, that
Well,
was,
yeah, because you brought it up, where do you see the industry going right now? Because I've talked to an awful lot of people. Aljon and I have been interviewing people for, the last 4.5 years, and, we're hearing that, the work has left Los Angeles or is leaving Los Angeles, that Los Angeles is no longer the center of animation the way it used to be. What are your observations on what's happening with the industry?
well, that's absolutely true. I think that really, DreamWorks pretty much pulled out now. They've gone up to Vancouver and everything. Disney's sending things overseas now. They're sending things to Vancouver and India. So you're totally right. I don't think there'll be any more big animation. Disney will probably keep a unit there forever, I would hope, but it's not going to be as big as it was. And if you believe Jeffrey Katzenberg and other people, AI is going to reduce that unit even further because they will take every opportunity they have to replace all the functions that AI can do. They'll do that in a minute, right? Because if they don't need to spend the money, why would they? So
But do you really believe what Jeffrey said, 90% of the jobs will be replaced by AI? Because I find that hard to believe.
I don't find it hard to believe in television because television animation is nothing but vocal story reels. I mean, most of it, the animation movement is so mechanical and predictable and automatic that you already have, we've had phoneme readers for years where you don't even have to animate the mouths. You can just record it and the AI will automatically animate the mouths. That's becoming, you can build libraries very quickly, basic libraries. It's the ultimate extension of the old filmation principle. Lou Scheimer at Filmation with He-Man 35, 40 years ago did exactly this. They built a library of poses and a library of layouts and a library of this and that. Then they would just simply plug them all in and reuse them. And
Yeah.
AI can do that in a second and do it better and expand on it and make it not look like it's reuse. And so as long as you're doing that, as long as you're just doing a basic TV design with characters that repeat all the time, and they're dialogue driven shows, you know, why not? AI can do 90% of that. I mean, it's only when you get into performance animation that requires uh, if you can even recognize and appreciate the value of an animator as actor, that you will still need to retain the animator as actor. If you get into the point where, and this is something that's already happening, where it gets harder and harder to distinguish an individual animator's style, because remember, they're doing the same thing with CG. Everybody's working with the same model and the same rig automatically. So it's automatically difficult to distinguish yourself because you're not drawing anymore. You're just working with the rig that 30 other animators are working with. Once you start building up motions and building up stuff like that, and riggers are getting to the point where they can rig the character to be almost automatic. So again, it's taking away the need to have individual acting from an animator, and that's a sad thing. And that's why I think we're starting to see 2D make a comeback with young animators because they're starting to realize that they can't distinguish, they can't break out when they're animating the same character and rig that 30 other people are animating on. But they can break out when they can draw their own thing.
Yeah.
So I think, and the good news about that is that, at first we thought, well, 2D is going to be dead because what people don't understand is that the big subculture that supported the 2D animator, which of course was the rough in-betweener, the key assistant, and the cleanup in-betweener, those three skill sets were gone. They don't exist in CG. So Glenn Keane or Kathy Zielinski or any of these animators can switch over to CG and they can animate in CG, but they no longer need a crew behind them. They don't need their
Right.
assistants. They don't need their cleanup artists.
Because the machine is doing
The
it.
machine is doing all that. So that whole necessary subculture of 2D animation has vanished. There's very few of those people left that can actually do that work. But the good news is AI can actually do that. AI can clean up roughs. AI can do in-betweens. AI can color. So you may find that that is something that brings 2D back because you'll be able to have the original creativity and unpredictability of the animator's 2D keys, and they can go in and they can touch up the AI in-betweens and make the thing look like they want it to look.
Yeah. So I mean, essentially, what you're saying with the technology is that, like for television animation, they'll have essentially a large language model of poses, mouth shapes, the backgrounds and all of that, and it's really just about putting in the prompts. I want Homer Simpson in the Springfield, tire yard where the tires are on fire, saying this dialogue, and it'll just be able to pull from what it knows, what it's scraping from what's been fed into that large model.
Well, you know how TV animation worked for years. You know that
Yeah,
the guys in LA would write the sheets and they would thumbnail on the sheets the poses and they would describe the action. They'd send that overseas, and the
yeah,
guy,
and they'd have the mouth shapes broken down on the
yeah,
dialogue
no, you don't have to
track.
send that overseas. The AI
Right.
reads the sheet.
Yeah.
The AI reads the sheet, and it gives you back exactly what the animation guys writing on the sheets, the sheet timer and everything. So
So
I
it's
think,
all about machine learning. That's the more sophisticated the AI programs become, the easier it is to have a smaller group of people generating shows like The Simpsons or Futurama or BoJack Horseman or whatever.
but you've got to realize that this whole AI thing, which is accelerating at a pace we don't understand, not only threatens our lives in real life, but we'll start taking animation in directions that you can't even imagine. I mean, I remember years ago when they developed the first massive program for creating, crowd scenes, and the engineers they would program the warrior. The way it worked is you'd create, if you had a big battle scene, each warrior would have a set of actions that they could do that they would react to the other character, and that's how they would set that up. And these guys, they worked for a long time to set up this battle, and they triggered it and they started it, and all these hundreds and hundreds of warriors are going at each other, and all of a sudden this one group gets surrounded and they just turned and ran. And we look at each other and said, "Did you program them? Did anybody program that?" Nobody had programmed it. Like the AI had already figured it out as an option. So that's what's going to happen when you start getting into storytelling and character building with AI. It's going to start writing the scripts for you. You're just going to set up a premise and it's going to say, okay, Homer Simpson would do this based on his entire history and based on this set of choices, he's going to do this. And you're going to find it's running away, with it, I think. And is
What
that bad? I mean, yeah, in a way it is. It is, but the problem is yeah, I think that we all kind of hope that it's not as good as they think it's going to be, that it's just not going to work. It's going to be more mechanical and soulless.
Well, Bill, I have said in the past, and I've said this in conversations I've had, what I'm hearing today about AI and people's fear of AI mirrors quite a bit of what I heard back in the late 80s and the early 90s of computers. That somehow the computers were going to replace the artists, and that never actually happened. What actually happened was that it created even more jobs. Did it displace some existing jobs? Of course it did, but it created a lot more jobs. And this fantasy of somehow the computer was going to save an enormous amount on film budgets never really materialized, right? So, are we hearing those same arguments today about AI? Is
Yeah,
it
we are, but
overblown?
I do think AI is a different animal entirely. I think its capabilities are growing again faster than we can imagine, and people haven't really learned to apply it as effectively yet. And when they do, it'll be even more effective. So, that one thing about how that was an old trope that when you gave somebody improved technology, instead of letting them do the same thing cheaper and faster. They simply made it more complicated and more complex, which made it seem just as expensive. I think the movie Flow was a really good demonstration that here's a bunch of guys that just made a movie and they took all the new tools and 25 people just sat down and made this incredibly wonderful animated feature film with just 25 people, right? And
Yeah.
with a tiny budget because they didn't do what everybody else is doing. They didn't, we're going to use every possible tool in the world. No, they just said, no, we just need this and this and this, and we're going to make characters do this. And because it's for us, it's all about the story and the characters, and we don't care about making complicated technology. And
And I was going to say, if anything, it was not complex at all. It was lush, but it didn't look complex.
oh, and the rendering of the characters, a lot of people were bothered by how simple they were.
Yeah.
It was superly simple. The lighting and the texturing was super simple, and who
Well,
cares?
I kind of agree with that, I have to say, because when I watched the movie, I didn't particularly care for the rendering of the characters because it was different from how the background and environments were rendered. And for me, there was a disconnect there. That was just a personal opinion, a personal observation. Other people didn't see it that way, but I sort of looked at it from that vantage point.
Well, I admit the first 5 minutes, it pushed me out a little bit. But
Hmm.
as soon as I got a hold of the acting and the staging and the story, I was completely pulled in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just asked a question the other day about it was about what I called the suspension of disbelief in animation, which is a really important thing because the audience obviously intellectually knows they're not looking at a real character. I mean, that was obviously true in drawing. It's usually true in CG unless you get all the way up to like, reproducing a human. So what is it that makes the audience suspend disbelief? Well, a movie like Flow to me is a great demonstration of the fact that you can have extremely simple uh, graphics and technology. It's all about simply involving the audience in the character. Once they understand what the character is thinking and feeling and they care about it and they are really, really involved emotionally in what the character is going to do next, you've suspended their disbelief. They no longer care how that character really looks or how slick it is. They're involved with it, and
Hmm.
that's the lesson there. And
It's all about story.
it's story and character. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
character,
all about
character
story and
is,
character.
character is story, right?
Yeah.
And you see that flaw in movies too. I just watched a movie last night that I had never seen before. Uh, I was Googling We're No Angels, the old Humphrey Bogart, Aldo Ray comedy directed by Michael Curtiz. And up pops We're No Angels starring Robert De Niro and Sean Penn. Did you know they remade it? Sean Penn and
Yes.
Robert De Niro produced it. It's like the most boring movie you've ever
Yeah.
seen. It is almost like a case study in how do you make some of the greatest actors we've ever had, Robert De Niro, Sean Penn, Demi Moore, you know, how do you take these people and make them into characters that have zero appeal? I mean, no appeal at all. And I thought that was an interesting thing, but I guess that's what we consider to be the barrier against AI, right? Is that AI will intellectually analyze all of these principles, but at the end of the day, it's an intangible, right?
Hmm.
I mean, entertainment is an intangible. That's how it's always been.
Yeah, and the AI is not going to be able to replicate human imagination. Just isn't.
It'll
Not
it'll,
maybe in
it'll,
the
it'll
future it will.
imitate. It'll imitate it. Yeah, it'll
Yeah,
imitate it, but it won't.
imitate, but it's not gonna, yeah. Anyway, so what is it that you would tell students today about the industry, and what is your recommendation to them if they're going to go out into the world?
Well, there's three things. The first thing I would say is support yourself. You know, um, find a way, no matter what it is, to just make sure you're eating enough and you're supporting yourself, you have a place to live and I mean, do that. Don't starve yourself or Do that. Secondly, make your own skill set as great as it can be, right? Be your own toughest critic. Don't depend on praise, because it don't. I used to have one of my main principles was, why would anyone other than my mom like this? I mean, your mom is always going to like it. Your friends are always going to praise you. It's a trap. You have to have the toughest standards to make yourself the best artist, and you have to find satisfaction in your own work. You have to find satisfaction in your own work and that's the only way to be happy as an artist. And then the third thing now, I think the outward thing you have to deal with is the industry has drastically changed. Drastically changed. It's obviously a global industry now. You may not have to go to Hollywood to work in the industry. You may be able to work anywhere in the world, from anywhere in the world. And you're going to have to deal with this new paradigm of technology. I mean, the good news is that you can make things you could never make, and you can also get them to an audience directly the way you were never able to do that before. So that may be something to think about. And the old things that we grew up with, where you'd go to work for a studio and you'd have a job and you'd have health coverage. I'm not sure how, you know, how available that's going to be. Not only are those opportunities shrinking drastically, but the competition pool has expanded exponentially, as you know. I mean, remember when we were young, it was Cal Arts and Sheridan, right? That's it.
And maybe School of Visual Arts in New York, which had some
SVA, yeah. So
animation
there are
programs.
three schools in the whole
Yeah,
United States that had an
yeah.
animation course. Now
Well,
there's,
and Sheridan was actually in Canada.
yeah, North America. Let's expand
Yeah, there we go.
it.
North America.
And then you
I'm being respectful to our Canadian listeners because I don't want to jump the gun and make them the 51st state just yet.
right. But now you've got, so we had three schools competing, and now you got 20 programs in LA County, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you've got
absolutely. What?
hundreds and thousands of kids. My wife told me that they had 37,000 applicants for one Pixar internship.
Yeah,
37,000 applicants.
yeah.
So it's insane. So that paradigm of being able to go to work for a company, I don't know. I mean, I think that may be. So what's the salvation? Well, the salvation is like we're doing right now. The online world is a different world, and it seems to offer other opportunities. So maybe that's something you have to seriously look at.
And you have to look at maybe being your own content creator, doing your own thing. And the you touched on it there for a moment. You said there's all of these, there's 20 animation programs in LA County. There's a disservice, I think, being done by a lot of programs around the country at for-profit colleges where they're just putting people in seats because they can pay. And I don't know about you, but I've actually seen portfolios from people who went through a 4-year program. They were seniors, and their portfolio was rudimentary at best. And I thought to myself, what the heck did these people do for 4 years? And why were they being passed along from year to year? And was it just because they could pay the tuition? Have you seen that out there?
Well, I absolutely have seen that, and I have to say at Chapman, my speech to the seniors when they'd come with their parents on senior day and everything, I'd say to them, look, we run this program like a professional program. We have professional standards. If you're not ready to work hard, do not come here.
Right.
Do not come here because I'm going to ride you and I'm not going to accept junk and I'm not going to accept half-done stuff. If you don't finish your films, you're not going to graduate. And it was funny how as the decade went on, I found the students to be less and less able to take criticism. You know,
Yeah.
I it wasn't just me. I used to walk across campus to eat at the faculty club every day. And I sat at a table with all these brilliant guys from mathematics and geology and, history. And all of them had the same reactions. They were watching the students change. They became more sensitive to criticism. They, some would break down in tears if you told them that their work wasn't any good. I was never one to berate students at all. I was always a constructive critic. I would never
Mhm.
say this is bad. I would say, what are you trying to do here? What are you trying to achieve? What do you want to, what's your end result? And let's look at what you're doing and why it is not working, what is working. I tried to be always constructive like that. But even with that, sometimes I would have these students that would just say, well, everybody else likes my stuff. All the other kids like my stuff. And I'd say, well, that doesn't mean anything. Your stuff,
Well, yeah,
it's not
that's
working with you.
that's like showing up at the soccer field and getting a trophy just because you showed up.
Well, that
And
was
that,
the cliche was that was the generation we inherited. We
yeah.
inherited everybody gets a trophy generation. And it was interesting because I remember distinctly a few of those years, the very best students I had were the ones that were also on athletic teams because they learned to lose. They would get beaten and they'd have to get back up again and come back the next day and work on what they didn't do as well to try to win the next day. And they had a certain mental toughness about them that was uh, necessary to be a good artist.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I've always seen and I've always been amazed at is the people with the most natural talent, like Glenn Keane and James Baxter and Mike Gabriel and Mike Giamo, they work harder than anybody else.
Hmm.
They could coast on their talent, and yet they work harder than they outwork everybody, even though they have the most talent. It's an amazing thing. So, it does take that. It does take that mentality. You can't just say, "Well, I like what I did. It's my personal expression," and that became kind of a a problem in not just my school, but a lot of places was that it was that excuse of personal expression and the lack of craft, not bothering to learn the craft, but just doing whatever you felt like doing was just your thing. And it looked like something and it was your expression and therefore it was acceptable. And, my feeling was that's going to be a tough time when you get into the industry, because the industry will not, they will not look at that with the same way you are.
So, Bill, all great conversation here. I mean, really hearing what you're saying is fantastic. I hope that there are some young people listening to this program and taking your words to heart because it is a rough and tumble industry out there. And at the end of the day, it really is all about talent. You're only going to last in this business if you have the talent and the drive to do it.
Yeah, I think unfortunately that's the case. And you know, when we often say that the hard workers, that people who work hard never fail. If they work hard enough, you're gonna have some success. But the other side, and I don't know if it's a sad thing or a nice thing, is that talent is basically a gift, and it's hard to manufacture talent. And if you're lucky enough to have talent, then you've got that thing that's necessary to build on. I always felt I was very blessed because I did have the talent to draw and not just draw, but to understand, to think dimensionally and be able to draw dimensionally, which in the days of 2D was the essential skill. You had to be
Yeah.
able to turn a character, and I had that ability, and based on that simple gift, I was able to make a career out of it. If I hadn't had that, I don't think I would have gotten far at all. So these days, you don't need that skill with CG, but you just have to hope that you've got that.
But you still have to you still have to understand the animation principles. You still have to be able to understand how objects move, how humans move, how a character moves. You have to understand all of those things in order to create engaging, entertaining animation.
You do, and a lot of that comes from innate understanding of sincerity and human nature and how people connect, because you have to internalize that and infuse that into your character so that your character connects in a way that connects with the audience. And that's a hard thing to uh, you know, just make a sheet, like a checklist about. I mean, because we always used to say, and you know this, if you're a good animator, you'll never animate the same scene twice ever in your whole life. Every scene is going to have something about it, like where it is in the story, who the character is, how the character is built or looks, what their internal thoughts are. There's always going to be something about it that makes that scene unique if you approach it with that kind of and depth of analysis and feeling, because the only thing an audience responds to, as I said before, is they have to share the emotion. If you get them hooked in and they share the emotion, you got them. And then the only question is, how do you do that? Well, we can teach you a lot of examples of how it has been done. And hopefully when you start learning those, you'll start learning the craft of how to pull it off. But at the end of the day, it's that individual vision. There was that old thing, and as an animation director, you experience it. If you give the same handout to 5 animators, you're going to get 5 scenes. And in a way, that's the great thing, because every artist brings their own life experience, their unique worldview to the animation. And that's why it's possible, even now, with thousands of kids getting into the business. Every single one of those kids can bring a fresh voice, right? And a different view. As long as they, number one, try to be sincere, not just imitate what they've seen before. And also then develop the craft to learn how to get that across. Who is the character? What are they thinking? And how do I show that to the audience? That's the basics of making a great animated character.
Well, with that, Bill, I say this is a great place for us to stop, because I want to come back next week and I want to talk about your new book, Mr. In Between, My Life in the Middle of the Animation Revolution. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for being on the Skull Rock podcast, and we'll see you next week, Bill.
Great to see you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I hope this was a useful visit. So, all right.
This has been fantastic.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
This is Development Director Mike Ketchwala, and you're listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Skull Rock Podcast is now on Patreon. Dive deeper into the world of animation, films, and behind-the-scenes stories with your hosts, Aljon Go and Dave Bossert. Not only will you be helping to keep the magic alive, but you will be part of our special community with ad-free episodes. We want to thank friend of the show, Joshua Volkert, as well as Skull Rock crew members, Steve Minch and Chris Banis, for their support. If you would like to join our Skull Rock crew, please visit our Patreon link in our show notes or visit patreon.com/Skull Rock Podcast. Thank you for listening and for your continued support of everything we do.
Skull Rock Podcast, where you hear the stories behind the adventures.
Let's get out of here!
Come on, Scotty, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here, Lieutenant.
Wrapping it up, Dave, part 5 with Mr. In Between himself, Bill Kroyer. Wow, that's tremendous.
It's just been an enjoyable conversation. I have to say, Aljon, it was wonderful being able to spend this much time with Bill Kroyer.
Absolutely. Just once again, tremendous. And if you're just tuning in this week, be sure you go back into the vault and check out our previous installments. You're going to love it. And once again, if you love Disney and pop culture, like I know you do because you're here, thank you so much. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this show. Let everybody know you're listening to Skull Rock. You can also check out our YouTube page. It's tremendous as well. All of our podcasts are on there for the past few years. I can't believe, Dave, we've been doing this now for, 3.5, 4 years? Something like that.
Well, yeah, no, next
month.
Let's see, in a couple of weeks, next month is going to be our 5-year anniversary.
I can't believe it, Dave.
Is that unbelievable?
It's unfathomable. I can't even describe. I can't believe you and I have been doing this for nearly 5 years now. Almost 5 years.
I just think it's absolutely insane because, again, as a reminder to our listeners, this really was sort of a serendipitous moment that this started. Because you suggested to me after I did an interview on your Disney List podcast, you suggested to me that I should do a podcast. And I responded by saying, well, if I ever did a podcast, I would do it with you.
Yeah.
And then you came back and said, well, if you're serious, I'll do it. And I'm like, yeah, why not? It was the pandemic. We all have free time on our hands.
This is true. This is true.
But here we are 5 years later. And, when we started out, I initially thought, oh my gosh, I mean, am I going to be able to get enough people to do interviews? I mean, it's just been never ending.
I can't believe it. I loved it.
We just keep getting, tremendous amount of people. We're getting tremendous amount of feedback from folks who are enjoying the conversations. Yeah. I don't know. I'm having a ball. I love you, man. I love being on this podcast with you. I love being a co-host with you. So,
Yeah. No, likewise, Dave. It's great. And, go back in the vault, check out all these episodes. And, man, so many more shows to come. In fact, we've got next week just things to wrap up with Bill. So, if you thought we just scratched the surface, man, we have another show coming up next week with Bill. So once again, if you love Disney and pop culture, please check us out on all of our socials. You can send us those emails as well, Dave or Aljon at skullrockpodcast.com. I will say this. Leave a like on this show. Leave us voicemail using our links in the show notes. We want to hear your voice on the show. I've been meaning to talk to Matt Mason about doing drops, poetry drops for this show. We're going to get back on it. Matt, a phone call is coming, I promise. And please be sure to check out my other show, Dining at Disney Podcast, where we talk about Disney food and the theme parks. So we've got a show that we're talking about this week, talking about the new pubs over there at Magic Kingdom and at Epcot. So please be sure to check that out. You can follow me, Aljon Go, on Instagram and Aljon Rocks. Please check it out. We appreciate it. Dave.
As always, Aljon, I just want to remind people you can hear me on my show, The Tunes Behind the Tunes, on SiriusXM, Disney Hits, Channel 133. All during September, we're featuring the song Miracles of Molecules from Disney's Adventure Through Inner Space, one of those attractions that's no longer at Disneyland but is memorable to many. So check that out. Also, you can order some of my books signed by me on theoldmillpress.com, including my latest book, Find Your Happy Place, the 8-Step Guide to Boosting Your Creativity Through a Personal Retreat, winner of a gold medal at the Fire Book Awards, and Aljon just won second place, distinguished favorite at the New York City Big Book Awards 2025.
Congratulations, Dave. That's amazing.
I just found out about it last week. It was very nice.
Congrats.
Yeah, and you can always go to my website, davidbossert.com. There's all kinds of free content, articles, stuff like that. At some point, I'll be revamping my websites in the coming months as things start to settle down. And with that, Aljon, I'm just going to say, go out and have a fantastic week, everyone. Enjoy yourselves. Be kind to one another. And we will see you back here next Monday, right here on the Skull Rock Podcast.
Hey, gang, it's time for the Disney travel deal. Of course. Kristen, what kind of deal do we have this week?
Well, we're going to be talking about Walt Disney World. And right now, you can save up to 20% on rooms this holiday season. You can also, if you are staying for 4 days or longer, yes, if you include with your room 4 days or longer standard theme park ticket, you will get a Walt Disney World Resort dining and shopping promo card. Of course, it's going to be vary based on your resort category. So if you're at a deluxe or deluxe villa, it's going to be a promo card of $100. Moderate $75 and $50 for those who are at a value. But the up to 20% off is going to be valid for stays most Sunday to Thursday nights from October 12th to November 20th and most nights from November 23rd to December 25th. So you can enjoy this when it comes to the holiday season.
Love it.
And when it ends on December 25th, that is the holiday season that many people are excited to get to enjoy at Walt Disney World. So,
wow, yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Take advantage now.
Yes. And how can people take advantage of this or any other cruise line deal, including, there are other
Universal
parks.
Orlando,
Yes, Universal
or
Orlando.
you can any cruise line, both river and ocean.
Yes. Where can people
They can
email you?
contact me,
Yes.
Kristen, Kristen, at magicaljourneystravel.com.
Awesome.